and it's their intrinsic
And then, this food basically robs
sound, visual, sound like. So what we need to do and what we must do is change it. And the only way we can change it is to stop listening to the artists who is destroying it. And that's the problem. People are not willing to step back and say, how can this artist talk about this stuff? How come these artists are not helping us? How come these artists are basically talking about destroying the Black community? And if you be real with yourself and stop trying to be cool and accept what they're saying. It was something that Tupac said. He said, listen to the music and hold us accountable. Listen to what we're saying. Don't just bob your head to the beat. Y'all remember that interview? I think about everybody has seen that Tupac interview, heard what he was saying. He was telling you to listen to what we're saying, hold us accountable. Don't just bob your head to the beat. Listen to what I'm saying and hold us accountable, because he was trying to tell you, he knew this music is destroying the community. This music is not good for the Black community. This music is harmful, but it's nothing that he can do because he signed that contract. The labels control his music, control his image, and what he wanted to put out. Tupac was a rebel, and everybody know that. And I always promote Tupac because, like I said, he's somebody who I watch teeter, back and forth. Sometimes he had to do what he had to do for the industry, and sometimes he put out that positive music. And I was a big fan, and I listened to the music, and I'm like, yo, this dude, is telling the truth. Nas was another artist who was really trying to talk to the people and tell you things, but you can see how it changed. All those artists who was trying to put out any kind of positivity in hip hop, any kind of music to make you think, they either changed their tune or they was killed or they not in the industry no more. It's something that you really got to look at and say, what's going on? But we couldn't fathom that back then. We looked at the music and we couldn't see that this was the case, and this was, what the music was going to really be about. We didn't know. To us, it was just music. We didn't really look at it and say, how come this white man, these people who lock me up, throw me in jail, can't afford a lawyer, they give me this piece of crap public defender. These people who do all this stuff, who spend billions of dollars on, a criminal justice system, on jails and prisons, to put me in prison when I do these things that I'm glorifying in hip hop music. How come these same people want to spend money to help me talk about this same stuff that they are locking me up for? We never fathomed that. We never thought about, like, what's going on? What's up with that? How come I can do this? Because before hip hop, you can't just go jump on TV and jump on the radio and say, yeah, shoot a nigga, kill him. I'm gonna sell drugs and hustle. They'll throw you in jail. They'll look at you like you crazy. And that was the case. We have to look at that and say, well, wait a minute, how come people didn't realize what this was, and that this was an attack on the African-American community, and not something that was for us, not something that was by us. It was something that was created to destroy the community, and they used us to do it. They took the greatest weapon we could have ever had and turned it against us. Had we been able to control hip hop, to really use it as a weapon for the Black community, to tell our story, to say that, it's drugs here, destroying the community. It's, cops come here and they brutalize us and they mistreat us. They treat us like shit, they treat us bad. It's things going on in the Black community that y'all should know. And we put the music out there in a way, telling the true story instead of glorifying the story. It would have been a major weapon. And the thing is, we look at hip hop, we look at the lyrics, we look at the music, and a lot of people, they get upset with the artists. A lot of people get mad at the artists. They say, why you put this kind of song out? Why this artist is so negative? People don't look to the label, the people who are actually responsible for putting the music out and putting it on the radio. Don't nobody look at these people and say anything. The news cameras came straight to NWA and said, what's up with the content? Why are you trying to put this music out? Not fathoming, and the people not fathoming, they can't control what goes out to mainstream. They don't run mainstream. You got white people running mainstream. They are not the ones who are putting the music out. I can write 1,000 songs today and record them, I can't put it out to the masses. I don't have that power. We never had that power. They had that power. So nobody went to the labels or went to these radio stations and the people who own these stations and who really controls what you hear, what goes out to mainstream. Nobody went to them and said, what's up? So everybody going to the artists and complaining about the music and the content of the music, and nobody is looking to the label. And that's because you see the news media, the newspapers was coming at the artists and not coming at the labels. They was creating the perception that it was the artist responsible for putting the music out. And it's one of the things that the mainstream media is good at, is creating perceptions to get people to perceive what they want them to perceive, to make you think we control something that we do not. But common sense should tell you, we don't control the FCC, we don't control, these broadcasting companies and these major labels and these major TV stations. So these are the ones, we don't run MTV. These are the people who are putting this stuff out. We didn't run VH1, and we don't run all these music labels and these radio stations who are putting out this kind of music. We didn't own the shops that was printing the CDs and distributing them to the stores. We didn't own the stores who was putting it out. So all this stuff goes back to people that's not us. It goes back to white people, it goes back to these Jews and these people who control this whole entire industry. So anybody who had a problem with any of the content from hip hop should have looked to them first. But since, and it's something that we didn't figure out or we didn't look to, the very same people who control the label, it's the same people who own the news companies, the newspapers. So you talk about companies like Time Warner and Disney and all these news companies and these news corporations, Rupert Murdoch News Corporation, you're talking about these same people, these same companies own almost every major label out there. You got Universal, you got Comcast, you got Universal, the music group, it's the same. Universal owns a lot of news corporations. I put out before about the Big Six and how they own everything. So we didn't fathom that the same people who's coming to us saying, what's up with the music, black people this, why y'all putting out that, it's the same people that own the labels. And this whole thing is a big trap. It's a big trap set up to bring down the black community. And I put out in the video the calculated destruction of the black man and woman about how music affects the brain, how tones affect the brain, about tonal language. I talked about all this stuff.
So what has happened to our young people is that this frontal lobe is your defense system. Music bypasses the frontal lobe. It enters, your ears are way back here, your frontal lobe is way up here. This is your temporal lobe. Music bypasses your frontal lobe, gets into your brain, so that when music is given to you, whatever message is tied to the music is not properly analyzed.
Now, one of the things I want you to understand is that the ancient Egyptians and most of the Africans speak a tonal language. They speak in tones. Now, Vietnamese has 11 different vowel sounds and it has 6 different tones. Now, Cantonese has a complex 6-tone system. And Thai is even a very complex tonal system, tonal language. But English has no tones at all. Now, as a matter of fact, the Rothman Research Institute in Toronto, they was actually studying, tonal language. And they realized that people who speak tonal language actually can really decipher music better than other people. They have a real rhythm. Their brain is already set to the rhythm of music. So it's real easy for them to play instruments or sing and, things of that nature. So the neuroscientists at the Rothman Institute, they basically said that if you speak a tonal language, it improves how your brain hears music. It improves how your brain hears tones. And they came to the conclusion that music is a language. Now, before you speak, a stimulation occurs in the brain, and then the words, flow out. Now, people who speak in tones, when they speak, the tone of that language comes back to the brain through the ears, and it actually stimulates the brain. So the implications are people who speak a tonal language over time actually improve a higher brain development. So basically more parts of the brain become developed and they become smarter. Now let's just think about a dog who doesn't speak English. Just think about tones here. Think about visualization. So a dog, what happens? You tell a dog to speak. After he speaks, you give him a treat. Now, the dog is going to take the representation of that treat. Whenever they see it, whatever tone comes out of your mouth, their brain is going to hear that tone and obey that command in order to get that treat. So if the tone is to speak, he's going to bark. He hear that tone. That's what he understands. He understands the tone. Dog don't understand English. It's the tone he understands. So he's going to do whatever that tone tells him in order to get that treat. Now, I want you to think of the implications of what I just said and apply it to hip hop music. Apply it to music. Apply it to hip hop music videos. See, we have to understand positive and negative tones. One tone is going to be positive. It's going to help your brain function. It's going to make you smarter. Another kind of tone is going to destroy your brain. It's going to make you lose control. It won't stimulate the brain at all. It's going to take control of the brain and force you to act out and do what that tone is telling you to do. So, black people, we always wonder why white people send their kids to music schools and why they make them play an instrument like the violin or the piano when they're growing up. You know, what's that whole thing about? Why do rich white people get all dressed up, all fancy, just to go hear somebody play Mozart or Beethoven? See, we didn't understand, we didn't get what was the whole fuss with Bach and Beethoven and Mozart. What was the whole fuss with classical music? It was just a bunch of guys playing piano or playing a violin. You know, what was the whole thing with that? But what they was doing, these geniuses actually played certain music, certain songs at certain tones that would stimulate a higher brain function, that would actually help your brain develop and make you smarter. This is what these guys did. So you have Mozart, who has the sonata for 2 pianos, played at D major. This song actually stimulates the brain. This song actually, it's been documented as helping stop seizures in patients who have epilepsy. It's amazing. You can Google it yourself. So these people knew how powerful this music was and that it actually stimulated the brain. Beethoven Symphonies 5 and 6 improves brain activity when played at certain frequencies. And that's another thing about all this music. They figured out if you play this at different frequencies, because I said before, everything operates on frequencies, then it has different ways of affecting the brain. So basically, like at 18 hertz, improves memory, language, and processing power of the brain. So you can actually do math a lot better while listening to this music at 18 hertz. So when you think about all that, you see why classical music is associated with wealth, with refinement, with intelligence. It's associated with a higher level of people, a wealthier people. So when you think about classical music in that aspect, you see why the relationship with people who are wealthy and successful goes hand in hand with the music. So look at hip hop music. What does hip hop music associate with? Well, you already know the answer to that. So hip hop music is associated with a bunch of bullshit, a bunch of mess. And we think that's us. We think that's what we are about. Oh, this our music, this black music. That's what we about. We about gang banging, shaking ass, and shooting niggas in the head. But they listen to Bach and Beethoven and Mozart, and they about wealth. So the music they listen to is reflecting their reality. Wealth. This is why they're becoming geniuses. You got these Albert Einsteins and, you know, look at Steve Jobs, people like him, and look at people like Bill Gates who are intelligent. You know, this is what their music is doing to them. And look at what our music is doing to us. So you understand what I'm talking about, and we think it's ours. This is why they let us keep hip hop. As I said earlier, we gotta figure out why they take away all the good stuff, and we really gotta pay attention to what they let us keep. This is why they let you keep hip hop, because they know what it's doing to your brain. But I know y'all, I know my people, I know how y'all act, I know what y'all gonna say. Man, I ain't giving up my hip hop, man, you crazy, you tripping. But you gotta understand, you don't really have to give up your music. You need to be conscious of how the music is affecting your brain. That's all. Just be conscious of it and understand what it's doing to you. Now, if you have everything you need in life, if you are where you want to be at in life, you obviously can't blame this music. You're doing well. The music is not influencing you. But if you are not where you want to be at in life, if you're having troubles, and if you're dealing with certain people who listen to certain music, I mean, at some point you got to put this together and understand it's the music. It's affecting you. You don't see it or you don't want to admit it, but it is. Look at what these people are accomplishing listening to this classical music. This is why they tell you let your babies listen to the music while they're in the womb, so they develop a higher brain function early. This is what they're doing to their children. We let our children come out and we got them shaking their ass already at an early age. It's not funny, but we got them listening to, all kinds of stuff. Nicki Minaj and Jay-Z when they little. How you think that's affecting their brain? I mean, come on. You gotta understand, guess where they got this knowledge from? Guess where Bach and Beethoven, guess where they got this information from? From you, from your ancestors, from black people. That's where they got it from. They got it from us. And look what they give us. So we gonna take this classical nice music and we gonna develop ourselves. Y'all can go ahead and have y'all hip hop and see what happens to y'all. As I said, if we control hip hop, if we made it something positive, made it something that would stimulate our brain to do something positive, to be great, to be successful, to be positive, then it would have been the greatest weapon that we would have possessed. And it would have definitely changed the way the black community is today. But instead, they took control of that weapon, they took it from us and turned it against us, and we have what we have. As I said, tones is everything. When you get people who say it's just music, they don't understand tones. They don't understand why a commercial is 30 seconds or 15 seconds. They don't understand why when you walk into supermarkets, they play certain music or certain songs. People don't understand how music affects the brain. They do. I also showed in the video about how the Grammy Foundation basically donates millions of dollars to researchers like the Rotman Institute that's in Canada they donate money to get the information that they have about how music affects the brain and what tones can stimulate the brain to do certain things. And you have to understand, music is the only thing that can bypass, your frontal lobe, far as the barriers that your brain creates to protect itself. Music can bypass all that and make you do things that consciously you don't know you're doing, nor do you want to do. Now, rich people or people who grew up with some kind of wealth don't have that kind of stimulation that needs to be filled like people in poverty. As I was pointing out, you got to understand that this music creates the stimulation to try to get you to fulfill it, but to do negative things to fulfill it. So you're basically working against yourself. So think about it. If you have a stimulation that's telling you, I want to be rich, I want to have girls, I want to have nice cars, I want to buy mansions and yachts. And the relation to these things is selling drugs and shooting guns and treating women like bitches and hoes. That's what you're going to mimic. And that's what's going on. You are mimicking these things instead of mimicking something positive. Now, if the stimulation for wanting money, wanting nice cars and mansions and girls had to deal with going to college, had to deal with starting your own business or being some kind of economy genius to help your economy grow and be better in the black community, then that's what we would be. We would be trying to go to college and to better the economy and fix the black community instead of destroying it. So when you understand how these tones work and how the stimulation work, you can see that if you are poor, it's easy for you to be susceptible to this stimulation because you can't feel it being poor. If you're born rich, you don't have it. It can't affect you because these things you already can buy, you can get. So the stimulation for these things is not there. It's already been filled by your money, by your wealth and what you have. So they must keep the black community in poverty in order for this deception to work. And that's what you need to understand. Nothing is going to change unless the music changes, unless the message change, unless we associate the stimulation for wanting to be successful, want to have nice cars and be rich, unless we associate it with something positive, something better than shoot a nigga in the head, you a bitch, you a hoe, then that's all we're going to get. And the black community is going to be what it is today still. It's going to stay the way that it is. We got to be real with ourselves and look at this stuff and say, it's destroying us. So some people may think I'm just tripping, it's not that serious. All you have to do is look at the culture. Look at what's going on around you. Anybody being real with themselves right now know what I'm saying is true. Look around you, look at what's going on. Look at how we had so many black people killed by cops. You would think that would have brought us closer together, but you still have black on black crime. You still have us calling our women bitches, hoes, and derogatory names. You still have the attack on the black community. We didn't come together. We should have really united based off of these things and said, you know what, something is not right. Because they let these cops kill us. And then we complain and we march about it and say Black Lives Matter, and we still listen to this music that's promoting violence and exactly what we are marching about. So you got to understand that they understand this. You got to understand that this is the problem, this is the issue. It's not about tripping about something, it's about the facts that it's not good for us. This music is bringing us down, and unless it changes, we won't change. Things is going to stay the same. But now, you got to look at the attacks. You got to look at the weapon of hip hop and how it was first used, how it was deployed on us. What is the agenda? First thing, as we know, get the black man out the household. Get him from out his house, get him away from his woman, get him to disrespect his woman, get him away from his kids, and then attack the kids to get them to turn on the women. Because if a kid don't respect his mom, he definitely not going to respect his girlfriend or the rest of the women walking up and down the street for that matter. And this is the attack that hip hop had. It had these black men saying, you know what, I'm going to go chase this stimulation. I'm going to go chase this dream of being this hip hop star. I'm going to say forget school. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to devote everything into this music industry. And black women ain't going to stand for that. So already from that aspect, you're creating a separation because you have a family to take care of, and you need to do that. You need to take care of yourself better instead of just putting everything into hip hop. And there's a lot of artists out there who are doing that, who think that their dream is going to come true because they got skills. And I'm telling you from a person who's been in the industry, that's not the case. There's a lot more to it than that. So you have these black men out here chasing this dream, and doing, fulfilling that stimulation. Since I want these things, I got to do these things. I got to be the drug dealer. I got to be the robber. I got to be the killer, the murderer. I got to be the gangster. I got to follow what this music is telling me to do in order for me to get these things. And that's how we lost a lot of black people. We lost people who inside was feeling like, you know what, I'm chasing my dream. This is my dream. And when you're chasing a dream and you feel like you're doing what you need to do to fulfill a dream, it's not too many things that a person can say to get you to turn away from that. People are not trying to hear all that positive talk or any kind of talk that's going against their dream. It's just like with religion. People don't want to hear that stuff. There's something that they believe is going to fulfill their dream, so they're going to stick with it. But people thinking they're going to become some kind of ghetto superstar, but not just that. People who were just, me, I was into hip hop, but I wasn't really falling for it as much as I seen other people do. I was just trying to feed myself and feed my brothers, put food on the table. So it was just like with other people, it's so much of a need to survive. So I gotta sell these drugs, I gotta do this stuff. I wasn't out there calling, disrespecting women and stuff like that, but I did what I had to do to survive, and that's the case. The question is, what do you do as a poor black person who don't wanna commit crime? You don't wanna sell drugs, you don't wanna go rob nobody or do anything wrong, and you went out there and you tried to find help, but ain't nobody gonna help you.